Let's drop some knowledge. All right, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast that accompanies this project that I've been calling No Other Life. And it's time to add some material to the models that we've been discussing. We started out this season talking about new beginnings, and what is a new beginning but a change? That's really all that we're talking about. And the big thing that we need to be aware of at this point is that a new beginning, according to the definition we've had up until now, is a point in time without duration at which you shift your focus from a project that was already in production, which I often will call the antecedent or simply Project A, and your focus changes to Project B, which, depending on what you're looking at, could be seen as a culmination, a journey, an adventure. It doesn't really matter, but the point is that your focus changes right then, right there. So I've used as an image standing on a plank that's balanced on a barrel or a can of some kind, and you're tottering in the middle there, and if you give too much weight to the left or to the right, there's a good chance that you're going to topple. You really need to stay right in the middle of that balance. And I asked you last time to try to think in this intervening period about anything in your life that you see as a change, see as a new beginning, see as a difference, that crossroads from A to B, antecedent to culmination, and see if anything doesn't quite fit into that space. And if you've done that, you may or may not have found out. That's part of the reason I always wish that this were a true conversation between us, because there's a lot that we could be talking about here. That would be an excellent thing to explore in the future. So the best that we can do is have me tell you what doesn't seem to fit. And in order to do that, we really need to add an additional piece of vocabulary. I've been teasing it for a few episodes now, and the reason for that tease is because I wanted to ensure that we have the 8 models firmly in mind so that we can start to think about things going on in our own lives. And I always like to try to teach by letting people figure things out and adapt them to their own lives. And so that's my motive for what I've been up to. But it is time to add this element which says that if a new beginning is determined to have happened when you cross over from Project A to Project B, you need to think of what it was that caused those wheels to set in motion. And sometimes it's rather obvious. With the unwelcome model, if someone says, "You're not welcome to come back to this office tomorrow," well, then that evening, that next morning, your new beginning happens, whether or not you were ready for it. So that really is concurrent with this incident happening and what immediately follows. But then think about it, friends, as an element of the epiphany model. Why not? At some point, you're realized that you are unfulfilled, and so you move forward and change a lot of elements of your own life. Why is it? What caused that? What made you determine that? And so what I'm getting at is that there ends up being a period of time before that new beginning. So you have a new beginning, which is very clearly a point in time with no duration where your focus shifts from A to B. But what got you there? And so here is the catalyst, the spark, the incident. And you'll notice that I frequently give you a list of vocabulary terms. One of them might feel comfortable to me, but maybe it causes you uncomfortability, the particular word, or it just doesn't work for what you're going through. I consider those lists to be fully usable, and I'm really just talking about concepts. So sometimes I'll think of this as catalyst in my own life. Sometimes I think of it as incident, spark. There's many other things it could be. So at this point in time where something starts, it kicks off a phase which can be called a gestation period or an adjustment phase. Whatever the point, it's a point in time, and there's something in the middle of that. And so what I was kind of thinking that you might consider to not be a part of the New Beginning models, the 8 that we've talked about, is illness or change to your physical body. And the way that I look at this is that a change to your physical body is a catalyst. What you do with that is the new beginning. And this adjustment phase may go on indefinitely. It may never reach the point of a new beginning, and I'll give you a few examples to describe this. So let's say, for example, that you suffer some sort of an accident and something about your physical body changes irrevocably forever. You have no choice but to recognize that. You have no way of ignoring the fact that now you have a different number of limbs on your body, or something has happened to your brain and it's not going to return. There's a lot of ways that this can happen, and I don't want to get into those details, but I did need to kind of set the stage so that you're thinking about what it is I'm thinking about. When that happens, in effect, the catalyst is concurrent with the point in time where your focus shifts from Project A to Project B. Project A, in this case, was an antecedent life where you are just going about your business, doing everything in the normal way that you do. Project B, in this instance, is your new life. It's modifying your home. It's getting used to the fact that you used to always eat your dinner with your left hand, and now you need to eat it with your right hand. Or it's getting used to the fact that a shower used to be a daily pleasure that you gave yourself, and you took 10 minutes. And now it's something that you're only able to take every couple of days. You require help, and the whole process takes an hour out of your life, and it's not pleasurable at all. It becomes utilitarian. Just a simple example to get us going here. On the other hand, we have changes to our physical body which are brought about by illness, a condition, a disease, a syndrome, whatever is medically appropriate for that instance of yours, is something that will change your life. There is no question that a diagnosis can change your life or will change your life. But when do you change your focus from that antecedent lifestyle, which now seems so distant and appealing and amazing, to the new one, which could be drudgery? It could be full of resentment, anger, hostility, sadness, or it could be a new recognition that, surprise, something has happened, and now we live differently here. And so what I want to focus on a bit here, now that you have this vocabulary term, or two vocabulary terms, one for the point in time and one for the period that approaches your realization or recognition of what's going on. And that period of adjustment is something that will be variable depending on the situation, depending on how you look at it in a given day, depending on your life experience. Suppose early on in your life you get some sort of a diagnosis about something, and you feel your world shatter around you, but you surmount it and you get over it. And there's a recurrence of that same situation. Well, you will probably attack it in a different way. You will probably consider it differently. And maybe it comes again, and you're less bothered by it. It changes your life, but it doesn't uproot you in quite the same way. Not to trivialize it at all, but it might affect you differently. Until ultimately you may have a recurrence again where you don't want to tackle it. You don't want to move on forward through it. So this could be the exact same invader over and over, and your experiences with it change over time, whether you're comfortable with it or not. Obviously, you're not happy about it or something, but you might explore it differently. You might experience it differently. So it's going to change differently depending on the circumstance for you and depending on the time frame for you, where you are in your life and all of that. But it's also going to be different for different people. That length of this adjustment phase will be different. And when I say that it will be different for different people, really what I'm getting at is the topic that will probably come on an additional episode, because it is a bit larger than just throwing it in here. But depending on the individual, you may be more comfortable or at least more acclimated to making quick decisions. And there's probably something in this about genetics and nature and nurture and all of that stuff. It could be also related to the industry that you have worked your working life in. Is it something that requires long, drawn-out thinking, or is it something that requires snap decisions? An example that I've given before might be a sports player, an athlete who's able to make very quick decisions on their individual field. But what does that do over the length of a career? That now you are at home. Do you suddenly make quicker decisions? Are you more impulsive with money and urges in your life? I would maintain that it seems, in my experience, that if you are the type of person who requires quick decisions in your working world, there's a very good chance that you also are adept at making quick decisions in your home world. Do I know that for a fact? No, I don't, but that is what it seems, what seems to be the case. So I just wanted to leave you with that, and I usually like to not tell the full story because typically there's a week or more that lasts in the world between these episodes. And I know that you're not giving your full focus in life to all of the nonsense that I'm spewing out here, but hopefully there is something that causes you to think and reflect about your life a little differently throughout that intervening week. And so I'm going to leave it there for now. Let you think about this and how it plays into all of the examples that you had presented to yourself of the prerequisite, the credential, the startup, the survival, the unwelcome, the pragmatic, the epiphany, and the unity models. And now, how do those things in your life relate to catalyst, spark, and incident? And I hope you come up with something good, and drop me a line if you want to. I'd love to talk this over with an actual human, but in this one-to-many podcast world, the best I can do is hope that you're hearing this, hope it's connecting, and hope that you take care of yourself, because we have no other life.